Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. All right, friends, listen, grab a pen and paper because this is an episode you don't want to miss. Mike Disney, the COO of CEO Warrior, joins us today to talk all about having a winning mindset in the blue-collar skilled trades. He shares his journey to get to where he is today, which is filled with inspiration and lessons learned. As the only member of his family to work with his hands, Mike found success in several corners of the trades, from auto mechanics to HVAC. Eventually, he fell in love with coaching and was appointed the COO of CEO Warrior, a coaching platform geared toward MEP, that's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, businesses. Tune in as we talk not only mindset and culture, but also strategy to build, maintain, and grow a successful MEP business. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. You can now find this podcast on iHeartRadio, SiriusXM, and Pandora. As always, we rely on the word of mouth of our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please do us a favor. Take a second to rate it, review it, and share it. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. They depend on you. So thank you again and enjoy this episode of Blue is the New White with Mike Disney. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. I'm super excited about our guest today, joining us all the way from New Jersey, which is awesome. Kind of. He got sun today, so that's a plus. But no, somebody I'm really excited to talk to, somebody I think that can add a ton of value and a ton of insight to all of our listeners, our entire audience, especially those, in the MEP trades and building MEP businesses. Really a wealth of knowledge, Mr. Mike Disney. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. I really appreciate being here with you guys.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a fun conversation. So for those that don't know who you are, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself first and foremost, and then if you could take us through who is Mike Disney. How did you get to where you are today, man?
Yeah, cool. So it's a pretty interesting story, but I think for some people, it's like the culmination of just being focused on wanting to do better each and every day. And so, born and raised in Baltimore, come from a pretty large family, have 4 brothers and 2 sisters, one of 7 kids, and Irish Catholic from the city, and everybody on my team is always like, well, he's got to get Baltimore out of the way right away. So, because it is, and my brother was on a podcast talking the other day, it's the greatest place on earth because it's home. And so, born and raised in Baltimore, met the mother of my children at Towson University. And so I was working at the time in a sporting goods store called Herman Sporting Goods. I'm probably dating myself to that. But they are like the Dicks of the late 70s, early 80s. And so worked there, held every position from tennis racket stringer all the way up to store manager. And I have the unique categorization to be their very last employee. So when they went Chapter 7, I helped the liquidation court and the bankruptcy allocated auction house close everything up. And so my ex-wife wanted to move back home to Jersey, and I didn't have nothing going on. So I figured it would be a great thing to do. So we moved to New Jersey. And the beautiful thing about New Jersey is children give you roots. Mm-hmm. And I did not have any children at the time when we moved up to New Jersey. And I have an adopted son and 4 children of our own now. So that gives us a reason to stay in New Jersey forever. And so came up to New Jersey. I'm an auto mechanic by trade. After I left the retail store, I worked for a family business where I was working on cars, doing auto electric work, being a wiring guy for all kinds of different things. And I bought that business and purchased it from a family member. And then I owned that business for 17 years. During that tenure, I had the ability to meet these guys who own this home service company in central New Jersey. And I had the great fortune to manage their fleet. And so when I first met them, they had about 40 vehicles. And I thought, man, a company with 40 vehicles is a great opportunity for my business. And when I sold my automotive business, I was managing almost 170 vehicles or apparatus for them. And so they had grown and scaled their business. And the one thing that really kind of intrigued me was that every time their guys would come to my business, to get a battery changed in the truck or get an alternator changed or tires or brakes or whatever it might be, everybody was always in a great mood, always happy, even if it was like 100 degrees out in July and their clothes were stuck to them because they've been working in an attic all day. They were always a positive energy, and I really loved that, and I was attracted to that. And then life happens. I had a pretty tumultuous divorce, I guess. I guess every divorce is tumultuous. And so my partner was my ex-wife, and my landlord was my father-in-law. So you guys could imagine when I went through that, I ended up selling. Yeah, pray for me later. And then and so I had the chance to sell my business just to create this level of, who the next person I needed to become and what was my new identity for my children, my family, and quite frankly for myself. And I got offered by Rob Zadati, who was a dear friend of mine at the time, to come and take a look and see if I could help him with his retail connection, because I did have retail in my background, and they were doing some work selling some HVAC equipment on the exit row at Costco through the Lennox experience. For some of your membership or some of your listeners will hear that and go,
can we pause for just a second?
Yeah,
Mike, I think this is a good stopping point, because I like to stop in places that I remember, where we can pick up. So I just got a couple of questions I want to flesh out before we move forward. So what did you end up going to college for?
So I went to, it's funny, I went to college for marketing. I never really finished. I didn't finish my 4-year college. I went to the University of Baltimore. Just like most entrepreneurs, you get this itch to do better, bigger and better things. I went to the Community College of Baltimore County and got my AA degree. I transferred to the University of Baltimore. I finished like a year and a half short of graduating that. I didn't really love it. I spent a lot of time in my work. I became a ski mechanic, and I really loved working with Marker and K2 skis, and so I kind of spent a lot of time doing that and kind of brushed off college. And then
what's a ski mechanic?
So installing bindings and going out to like where they have events, and then mounting bindings for professional skiers and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so I spent my early 20s doing that, traveling all over. I was a certified ski mechanic for Marker ski bindings, and doing some work with K2 skis. So it was a lot of fun. That was through my engagement at my retail store, my sporting goods store. And so my education was probably more, and I come from a really highly educated family. I got doctorate degrees in my family. I got master's degrees. My father was a doctorate of law and stuff like that. So, but for me, it was really I was the work with your hands and kind of make things happen kind of guy. And I guess I just took that to another level of evolution, really.
No, that's great. And that's actually, thanks for saying that, because that was going to be my next question was, you said you're one of 7, right? Yeah. And how many people in your family work with their hands is what I was going to ask.
Absolutely none.
So it's you, huh?
Yeah. So I have some pretty dynamic brothers and sisters. And so I have a brother who's a doctor of chemistry who has he's an RNA specialist, and he creates medicine on a routine basis that is transforming the world. He's just brilliant in so many ways. I have an older brother who worked for Constellation Energy Group. I got a sister who's a monster in the banking industry and compliance. I have a brother of mine who's a district manager for Dick's Sporting Goods, as you can see the family trait rolls. And then I have another brother who's an English, he's all about literature and all that kind of stuff. And so really highly educated. My mom never went to school. She was kind of the stay-at-home, never moved a mile away from where she grew up. And, my dad was a real educated guy. He believed in being really practiced at education. And I don't know that I love that much. Yeah. I was the kid that, I had a YZ-125 and I blew the piston out of it. I learned how to fix that. And I became the auto mechanic in the neighborhood, if you will. Okay. And we would tinker around and fix things. And it was a way for me to kind of have an outlet for my energy.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. So what was your dad's influence on you or your family? I mean, it sounds like that there's been a lot of success realized in your family, and with your dad as well. Was he the type to kind of instill those important fundamental values into you?
Man, my dad was one of those guys where it's a difficult conversation, right? So my father was this guy who worked his ass off, right? He had he was in the United States Navy for over 50 years, if you can imagine that. 40. So he was in 10 years active, and then he did a 40-year jaunt where he was in the reserves, and then he did an emeritus role after you got to manage yourself out of the Navy. He was given tours at Fort McHenry, and so he did that his whole entire life, right? Because he just loved the military. And so I am not a military guy, but I come from a military family. My father's father died when he was 13 of tuberculosis. So my father was one of those guys that he had my aunt and him, and that's it. And he had to go to the Navy when he was 17 to support his family, Korean War era, that kind of stuff. And yeah, he was just like, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to fight for my family, and that's how you need to learn. And so I don't. My father comes from the old school. I mean, I'm a product of the 70s and 80s, so I know both ends of the belt. And so for me, it was kind of like, look what I do and see how I fight for my family. And those are the values I really got from my father. Like, there is never a hard day work because you've got a greater purpose. And I have 5 children now, one adopted who's just doing incredibly special things down in Virginia, and my other 4 that are here in New Jersey. And you know, I kind of just want to be, you know, kind of an example for them on the hard work basis. I mean, I haven't been the greatest father. I think I talk about this with my members a lot about how being present for me was absent for a lot of times because I was working hard on my business. I was spending a lot of time trying to build what that next level of my business was. And, you know, not having a fantastic marriage, my kids kind of felt the brunt of that. And now I'm just making sure that I'm present when I'm present. I'm there for them. And yeah, my dad wasn't that nurturing kind of dad. He was kind of like, hey, get off your ass and go do stuff. And, you know, you'll find a passion, but you go. So there was always a demand for education, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. I mean, I think I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm a well-educated kid. But I think most of my smarts come from the street, if you will. My father taught me something most parents probably don't teach their kid, and that was survival. I learned how to avoid being abused by like hitting the bricks and splitting when times got tough and coming back when times were good. So I don't know that I had an amazing example, but it was perfect for me.
I think that's a powerful statement. I appreciate the candor and the transparency there. I think that might resonate with quite a bit of our audience. All right, last question based on this first part here before we move on with your story. So in this, you know, you said a lot, did a lot, you know, in your journey up to this point, to the point where you sold your mechanic business, right? What led you? Right, if your dad didn't work with his hands, if it wasn't really pushed in your family, education was on the pedestal, right? What led you to begin working with your hands in that manner? I mean, what called to you? Why'd you pick up that wrench?
Yeah, I met this guy when I was working at Herman Sporting Goods. I met this guy Greg, and he was a ski mechanic. And watching him just do things with tools really was like, I've always been a creative kid. Like, I had an erector set I would make shit out of. I was the kid that built the tree house in the neighborhood. I'm from the city, but we had little spots of woods where we would build things. And so I was that kid that learned how to, and my father was always very handy. Being in the Navy, he was an electrical engineer. And so that's where I got the wiring concepts, and I learned a lot of that from him. But my father was always doing stuff. And so, you know, he wasn't a mechanics per se, but like, he had to build a sidewalk around the house. My father was cheap as the day is long. And so he would go to Sears and buy the stone and the sand and build the sidewalk. And so I had a true example of, you can always do it better for yourself. And so that's what I always felt was like kind of something I wanted to do. I will tell you, my greatest influence in, you know, being a blue collar trades guy was my father-in-law. Yeah, I think he taught me more things of how not to be in terms of management than how to be. But the one thing that I never missed, and I'm fortunate with my father and my father-in-law in life to be surrounded by 2 men that just had work ethic coming out of their ears. And so my father-in-law never finished the 9th grade. He was not a very well-educated man, but he was brilliant in many, many ways. He built massive amounts of businesses. He had a very large amount of opportunity that he gifted himself through hard work and effort. And I never missed an opportunity to pick his ear and lean on that. And I bought my first automotive business from him. And it was a really great opportunity for me to kind of carry on his legacy for a little bit, because he did work his tail off to build it out of nothing. And I was honored to be the third owner of a 100-year-old business here in Central New Jersey. That if you talk to most people in Central New Jersey, they know exactly the business. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
That's a hell of a story, and I think it's a testament, to the blue collar skilled trades. And listen, anybody in the trades, I will probably resonate with this, but I know a ton of people, right, that are the same exact way. I mean, I've known people that can't read, that can't write, they can barely string two sentences together, but they can build and fix things better than anyone I've ever seen in my entire life. And the value in that, if they use it correctly, is far more than anything else they could be doing. So I think that's a huge hat tip, and to the power of the trades. All right.
yeah, absolutely. And my father-in-law, just to kind of anchor that a little bit,
Yeah.
what you're saying there. He worked his tail off and he showed people how to do it the right way. And then the thing that my father-in-law taught me, I think, the most was how to reinvent himself for the people around him. Right. So he's been gone now for a couple of years. But when he was really in his prime working, he wasn't working on the business anymore. He wasn't working in the business anymore. He's working on it. And he learned even at this, at a prime level where he was, that you've got to be doing the things that are really more impactful for everybody in the business. And so absolutely agree that when you can work with your hands, you're probably in a position to do anything you put your mind to. But you have to really kind of evolve and recreate your identity on a routine basis.
Agree, and thank you for sharing that. And we're going to circle back to this in versus on thing a little bit later when we get into other things. So, all right, so let's pick it up. You had sold your business, went through that messy divorce, sold your business.
Yep.
What happened next?
Yeah, so then I talked to Rob Zadati. He says, "Hey, I would love for you to come over and maybe help us with this retail connection we have with Costco and Lenox. We're struggling with it. We're not really doing good." And I told my father, I said, "Dad, I'm going to go work for him." He goes, "Why are you going to do that?" He goes, "Why don't you just do it for yourself?" I says, "Well, look, I don't think I'm going to be here forever. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to learn their culture, because their culture is unbelievable. Everybody I ever met was happy. And so I wanted to learn their culture. I wanted to know the great things that they were doing. I was super excited about it." And then magic happened. Rob said to me, he goes, "Dude, you have to run through an interview process, but you got to interview with my partner. I'm your friend. I can't interview you. I'll just give you the job. But you got to interview with my partner." And I met Mike Aguilera, and these two guys have been really incredible mentors for me. And Mike literally told me in the interview, he said, "I don't think it'll work. Friends can't work for friends. And I'm not really sure what I would even pay you. You were a business owner, and then you're going to come over and run this little tiny entity of my business that, quite frankly, I don't even care about." And I says, "Well, why don't you do this?" Because I really wanted to learn their culture, their values, their presentation, their painted vision. And I got stories around all that stuff. And so I said, "Why don't you just pay me what you pay your lowest paid employee, and then 60 days, look me in the eyes and pay me what I'm worth." And Mike was like, "You're the kind of guy I'd love to have on my team." So he paid me, I think it was like, and we laugh about it a lot. I think it's like 32 grand he paid me, which was just absurd. And but I went in, and the first thing I did was I was gifted this opportunity to be the retail sales manager and fix this Costco entity. We were in 3 stores doing about $330,000 in revenue on an annual basis, which Costco that's just horrible for anybody on here who does the Costco dance or any retail dance. That's really miserable. I made a phone call to Costco. I says, "Hey, look, I just took over this position. What do I need to know?" And the buyer told me, he goes, "Well, you guys are slated to be removed from the program." I said, "Well, that's awesome, because I just took the job." And I said, "Well, why don't you tell me what I need to do to stay?" And Justin, the buyer, told me what I needed to do, and I just delivered it. And so we ended up, not too long down the road, taking 3 stores to them gifting us 4 more, having 7 stores, and that ultimately leading to about $8 million in revenue, 7.5 to 8 million in revenue. And so I fell in love with the retail entity of HVAC. I fell in love with the process of selling in-home sales of HVAC and plumbing equipment. Ultimately, After the first year, I became the sales manager. I was doing in-home sales just to learn the craft and being a comfort advisor, selling about 2.5, 3 million a year in sales. And then ultimately became the director of sales. And when I was the director of sales, I was managing the install functions for plumbing, which were underground, one-day bath remodels and waterproofing. And then we had an outbound division, which was doing calling on existing clients. And then all the in-home sales guys and all the install functions off of that fell to me. So back then, and I'm going back a little bit, we did about 32 million. We were on pace to do 40 our last year. I managed about 21 million of that revenue and about 105, 108 of those employees at any given time. And so that was the journey for me. And then private equity comes along and buys the company from my founders. And the Horizon Group and Sun Capital come in and purchase Gold Medal Service right shortly after they had purchased Horizon, Dave Geiger and Mark Aiken, and they purchased the business from them. And those guys were our South Jersey competitors, right? So we had competed in Central New Jersey. And then I had an opportunity to work with those guys. And we had already started CEO Warrior in Gold Medal prior to that sale. And so I had already been coaching probably between 80 and 100 clients.
And what year was that?
2014.
Okay.
24. Well, the sale was probably 2017, I guess. So we had started CEO Warrior in 2014, and the sale took place in 17, 18, in that area. Not great with the exact dates, but boy, the journey's been a great thing. And I didn't really love and I think I was going to be positioned to be the retail guy, right? Do the Home Depot, the Lowe's, the Costco dance. And I was great at that, but I didn't love it. It wasn't a love affair with me. And coaching the clients at CEO Warrior became my vocation. And so I really wanted to do that. That's all I really wanted to do. And so leveraged that conversation with Dave Geiger, who's an incredible gentleman. He allowed me to work through Mike and Rob's non-compete to go work with them and go over to CEO Warrior and really kind of continue what we had started. And then it just rolls into this where, in 2020, we got acquired by private equity. My founders have exited. They're on to another thing for them and themselves in life. They're completely out of the home service businesses. And now it's my torch to bear for our clients today and the journey. And now I'm supporting a private equity firm, plus the 20 plus people that work here. And so, and the 300 plus clients of our core membership group. And so it's really a great journey. It's been an amazing story. And it all starts with, just this belief system in myself that I won't tolerate working things through that I don't love. And then really kind of having great mentors along the way. First and foremost, the opportunity that Rob Zadati gave me that one day, even though he was a friend, it was an unbelievable opportunity. And then to be able to work with Mike and Rob for as many years as I did was a cherished thing for me. And then to meet people like Dave Geiger along the way and all these other guys that I've had the fortune to coach, train, and manage. It's just been an amazing journey for me.
Sounds like it. That's a hell of a journey, man. I have a million questions, but I can only ask you a few. So I got to know, what is it that you love so much about coaching? You said that you fell in love with coaching, and I'm curious. I've asked a bunch of different people this question, and I always get a different response, but I'm curious why you love coaching so much. What is it?
Well, I'm going to tell you the very first thing, and I've always felt myself as like, and if we think about the sports entity, I think I've always been the coach, right? So when we've had like softball leagues, I've always been the organizing guy, right? I've always been the guy who runs the book and does all that stuff. And so I was a comfort advisor. I was making a lot of money selling shit in the house, man. I was having a lot of fun doing it. And my son started Pop Warner football. And man, I just wanted to coach my son. Nothing else mattered. And so I came to Mike one day and I was like, man, I just can't do this, man. I got to coach my kid's football team. And I can't be an effective comfort advisor, missing every night in August out in the houses and all that stuff. So he says, well, listen, why don't you be the sales manager? And then you just have to be available. You don't have to run the calls. And so coaching my son and his football team and baseball teams and my daughter's softball teams, watching the light bulb go off, is the greatest gift you can have in life. And so for me, when I would sit there and talk to my kids about why we have to do, why we have to do practice, why we have to run drills, and why we have to run, all these things that they hated to do in August, and then recognize that first year we went 8-1, the next year we went undefeated, and that's why we do it. And then having the recognition and watching these kids grow and scale as human beings was awesome. And then to be able to have these companies and these clients have faith in me and my organization to lift up the hood and let us look at the P&Ls and balance sheets and their organization and have relationships with the people on their team and really watch not only light bulbs go off, but Josh, we in the almost 9 years we've been in business, we represent over $1 billion of growth for our client base. And that is just something we are incredibly proud of. Now, the next level of iteration to that is we've had 37 people in the last 2.5+ years exit the generational wealth. Now, I know there's a lot of fever around private equity, especially the last couple of years, but we have a recipe, and watching our clients enjoy the freedom they've always wanted from their business is the greatest gift coaching can give anybody. And if I could play a small part in your business because you have faith and trust in me, I don't know any greater gift than that.
Yeah. No, I don't know what to say, man. That's really well said, and I hope that my audience is listening, and I hope that they're taking notes, because this is pretty powerful stuff, man. And I can see why you love it. I don't really have to ask the question. I do, because there's people, listening and not watching, right? Sure. But I can see you, and I can see the passion that you have for this, and it needs no explanation, really. All right, that's really great. So it was 2020, I think you said, when your founders exited, right, and basically passed the torch to you.
Yeah, so we got acquired by Corridor Capital 2020, December of 2020. And then our founders, Mike and Rob, were probably along the ride for, here and there for another year, doing the dance with the board and helping with the transition and all that stuff. And then brought in another CEO to work with us. I'm the chief operating officer. We have a CFO. And then we built this discipline of who we wanted to be. And it's not, it's not easy. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's a re-identification of who I have had to be over and over, because I came in as an advisor, then I went to a director, then I went to this pseudo manager, whatever title you want to give me, and now I'm being chief operating officer. It's a whole nother description of who I need to become, and that's really been the greatest journey, right? So, the love affair with the clients, I think I impressed that upon my advisors more than anything, because it's funny. One of my old clients posted an opportunity he wanted somebody to take advantage of on our free page today in Facebook. And he goes, if this is not okay, just remove it. And the only thing I could put in this comment was that I love you, because he exited his business. He's a dear friend of mine. I have these great relationships with these people that have been in my world. And not only do I get to know their business and the people and the families that they touch and the communities that they touch, but I get to know their families and where they're going to college and how they're having babies and buying houses. And man, just like that participation is a gift from these clients to me. And my organization doesn't take that lightly. And we really absolutely love what we do.
Awesome. All right. So let's get a little tactical here.
Yeah.
I'm curious why, like the biggest reason you see that people come to you, and when I say the biggest reason, I mean the underlying reason. You know what I mean by that, Mike?
Sure.
Not just the, hey, I want to sell my business, please help me. But what's the why? What do they open up to you with?
Well, I'll tell you why they need us, or why they need any kind of coaching organization. I'll tell you what separates us from others. And I'll tell you that every single member that's come into my world came for a reason, and that's not what they got the most out of us. So I have a member in my world who sold his business this past year, and he said, and he was in our world for 7 years, and he said, I came for the marketing, and I'm not sure I used any of it. And the reality is because he realized that's not what he needed. Here's the underlying reality for most blue collar people, and let's just call guys in the trades, right?
Sure.
Because quite frankly, we still don't get the respect that we deserve and need. I mean, we're the reason the lights are on. We're the reason people are healthy and safe, and we're the people that take care of a home and change a lifestyle in the house. And so there's a profound responsibility we have, but there's a profound the world's recognizing who we are slowly but surely, which is a great thing. Most of them it's the owner themselves. It's their mindset. A weak mindset is never going to get anybody to the next level. And most clients come into our world saying, the bullshit limiting beliefs that they have, that they surrounded themselves with. There's no good employees. Marketing companies, all these digital guys just take money. They don't deliver any results. Clients just want to discount all the time. They got their hand out. They're looking for everything easy. And we teach this one simple thing, and I've really kind of anchored it this year. Just ask yourself, to every challenge you have, just ask this simple question: what if that's not true? Just what if it's not true? What if I'm in New Jersey. There's 9.5 million residents of New Jersey. Do you think there's not good HVAC techs here in New Jersey? Do you think there's not good plumbers? Do you think there's not good electricians? Do you think there's not good garage door guys? I mean, there's a ton of great people. Maybe we don't present them a great opportunity, or maybe we haven't put the fabric of opportunity in front of them, nor have we trained and coached and onboarded the right way to get people to really kind of take advantage of the true opportunities that the trades do offer.
Yeah, I think that's powerful too, because and listen, being a business owner in the trades, I can tell you, I've seen this mindset. This is real and this is prevalent, and I think that everybody out there should be paying attention to exactly what it is that you're saying. Is you're not going to get to where you want to go having these beliefs, right? Because they are inherently limiting, your success. You can only achieve what you believe. And if you believe that there's no good techs, there's no good employees, all customers lie, they're always out to get you, to scam you, to whatever, then that's what you're going to get, man. You're going to get more of the same. Wow.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, Josh, just take your story, right? I looked at a couple of things, and you were coming to Arizona to work with your dad and his business and that kind of journey. If you didn't embrace that and have an open mind to it, where would you be? Right. And
I'd like to say still alive, but
but you recognize, right? Like here's the reality. I got 1 million people that walk through the door during our service business live events, and they're like, I want to get my business to $10 million. I was like, cool. Well, you got to get rid of your $1 million mindset. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't build a $10 million business with $1 million, quite frankly, you can't build it with a $10 million mindset. The way technology moves so fast today, if you're not improving your education of what you need to do, if you're not uncovering the technology that advances you, if you're not having a mentor or coach, if you're not reaching out to the people that have gone before you, it's going to be a slow process, and people will blow past you. And in today's world, we're going to do a webinar on Thursday that has to do with uncertain times in the trades, right? And here's the reality. Everything in the future is absolutely certain if you're planned for it. If you're not planned for it, everything is uncertain. And so I have no doubt in my mind that majority of my clients that are doing the work will have no problems in 2023 attaining their goals and hitting their targets. The reality is, I have a good percentage of my membership base that won't do the work, and they will feel the pain because they're stuck in this process of being fearful of what's coming, or, falling back into the easy. As a service expert and being in a truck and being an owner of your own business, the hardest thing for you to do is to get out of the truck. And there's only one reason why it's so difficult. It's because it's so freaking easy to be in the truck. And so if you could just recognize that you are not challenging yourself, you're not giving your best to your family, you're not giving the best to your company, and quite frankly, you're ultimately failing your community if you don't evolve and become a new you. That's really the emphasis that we have with our clients when they come in. And then we roll them through our 9 pillars of business strategy, which talks about mindset, skill set, and action set, talks about creating clarity, alignment, accountability, and then leads into coaching, training, and managing, and what all those 9 mean to your journey. And that's an everyday education for you and an evolution of who you can become.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, a lot of what you're saying right now, it resonates because I've gone through it, right? And
Sure.
I'm not done, right, by any means, but it definitely speaks. I remember I was in the field for almost 10 years, you know, and I remember stepping out of the truck, and it took probably a good 2 to 3 years to truly step out of the truck, you know. And now the pendulum has swung pretty far in the other direction, if I'm being honest, and I don't get
Sure.
out there enough, you know, because I
Yeah.
honestly, and this isn't something that I've said on the show before, but it's the God honest truth. If I allow myself to do that more often, I do risk swinging that pendulum because, man, the satisfaction that I get from fixing the piece of equipment is still something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, like, man, let me tell you what. I used to be an auto electric wiring guy, right? And so I was really pretty exceptional at it. I learned an unbelievable trade that my father-in-law taught me that very few people had. And I used to have a lot of the engine houses in New York and New Jersey bring me their hooks, all their emergency vehicles and all that stuff. And man, I used to be like, oh, I got this one, because I never wanted my people to do it because I was worried the rigs are expensive. And all I recognized after a while, one day I'll use an example. I had one of the trucks from Brooklyn came down. It was a hook and ladder, and I was underneath of it changing a field relay. And I slid out underneath the ladder, and I looked in and I saw my 10 guys watching me work. And I realized, you could be like, oh, these guys aren't even working. They're just watching me. The reality is they all wanted to do the work I was doing, and I was holding them back from growth and opportunity. And so that was it. That was the day I locked up my toolbox. Quite frankly, I gave my toolbox to my son, who is now working for Caterpillar as a diesel mechanic. And so you see how that evolves, right? And so, getting rid of the tools and finding a greater purpose for yourself. What's the highest and best use of your resources? And you have to ask yourself that every day. And Josh, you going back in the truck, when you go out there and do that in terms of participation today, it really is just getting out there to see how everybody else's day is going and how can you help, and understanding the fabric of today's complexities and what they have to deal with. That's why you're out there doing it. But you can't pick up the tool bag and go do their work for them, because all you do is strip them of the opportunity that's in front of them.
Yeah. No, that's really well said. And that's actually a really good lead in to the next question, right? So I said we were going to circle back to this earlier on in the podcast, but we've all heard are you working in your business or are you working on your business?
Sure.
Right. And this is a very complicated question to answer because at different stages of the business, I think you alluded to this, you're going to have to work in your business and on your business, and or both, or simultaneously, or whatever, And so I think that a big, I can only speak from my experience. So this is the question I'll ask. Is there an indication of when you should begin to step out of working in your business and start working on your business? I ask because I've heard people say it needs to be day one, and I've heard people say it's not until you're 10 years in. And I know it's a bit subjective, but is there any indicators?
Yeah. I would like to agree that it's day one. And here's what I'll say. I think as when you're a plumber, let's just say me as an auto mechanic working for my father-in-law, I got a set of tools. I got a bay that's mine. I get the right time. I get to sell jobs. I get to point out all the shit underneath the car for the clients and go, look, your muffler's rotted and this sway bar is no good and this ball joint needs to be replaced. And I get to play a part in selling that opportunity. Once I bought my business, and I learned this from my father-in-law, who had zero education other than working his tail off and learning on his own. He said to me, he goes, when I gave him the deposit check and he held the note on the rest of the business, he said to me, he goes, I want you to hear this from me first. You are no longer an auto mechanic. You are an entrepreneur. Do what entrepreneurs do. Don't be an auto mechanic. Now, he didn't mean don't pick up a tool and never touch a car again. But he used to say, it's okay to go out there and help those guys. But if that's where you're spending the majority of your time, you aren't a business owner, you just bought a job. So I think look, don't ever put yourself in a framework of comfort because it never comes around, right? You can't grow in a comfort zone. Nothing grows in a comfort zone. Just think about, a caterpillar and how the metamorphosis of that is. It's a painful transition, but what happens is you become something amazingly beautiful on the other end. And I think if you're going to take the risk of being a business owner, you ought to recognize there is no time like the present to start acting like one.
Yeah, that's really sound advice, and I appreciate you saying that. So
Yeah.
Next question I have for you. There's a lot of talk, and you even mentioned it earlier in the show. Culture is everything, or maybe not everything. Culture is important. Okay, it's of the utmost importance, and culture seems to be one of the challenges in the blue collar trades, at least from my perspective. Now, listen, some companies out there do it really, really well, but from my observation, they are the exception. First, would you agree with that statement? And follow up to that, if you do, how many of your clients come to you for a culture revamp?
Yeah, it's great. I think culture is everything. I agree with you. I think it's the most imperative thing. I think you can't do great things without people. Now, you got to support them with processes. You have to have systematic approach to your business. Here's what I'll tell you. When you hear that culture is everything, or a lot of people talking about culture and values and vision and all this crap that you're hearing on your podcast and many other podcasts and Joe Rogan's podcast, everybody's podcast, right? You're hearing all about it. It's lip service for about 80% of the people. All it is them trying to act like they know what they're talking about. The bottom line is what is your commitment to it? And so I believe there's some simple framework to culture that has to take place. The first and foremost, you have to recognize where it comes from. It comes from people and it comes from process. That's what creates culture, right? That's the two pieces that start your cultural strength, if you will. But they have to be built upon a vision that's painted and detailed and deliberate. And then they have to have core values, and then they have to have brand promise, and they have to have founders focus. And so when you think about all the business owners in my world, we run them through a cultural process of how to build a vision, how to build core values, and not just hang them on the wall and not just talk about them. I mean, I'm talking about ingrain them in your soul so that when you walk down the aisle of Home Depot, people already know who you are and what you're looking for before they ever hear you open your mouth. And so I think the reality is founders focus is incredibly important. The painted vision that you present for your 3-5 years out over and over and over again is incredibly important, because with a lack of vision, nobody knows where they're going and they don't want to be part of something that's not greater than them. And then your core values should emulate who you are as a person and how you act in your community. And I think those are really, really important portions of that stuff. And then it all kind of wraps itself around this just great opportunity to create this win-win-win scenario, right? Like, how do you know you got great clients? Because they've experienced great work that you provide and they come back. You have this retention model, right? You have this community of, I want to keep giving you work because you do great work. And the problem is people that have the lip service of, we got a great culture because they play cornhole in the parking lot and feed hot dogs every once in a while. That's not what it's all about. Now, those things are great. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love hanging out, drinking a beer with my workmates and coworkers, having Christmas parties and doing the dance and all that stuff. 4th of July is coming around. We'll invite some people over as well. I'm sure you'll have parties, and culture plays a part in that. But man, if it's not talked about every aspect in your business all day, like, there should be 100 touch points on culture in your business all day, every day. It's not about, it's funny, right? Because social media is this is this conduit to, hey, look how great we are when we're not even that great, right? And so everybody's celebrating HVAC techs, right, last week because it was HVAC day, and I think that was the 22nd of June, if I'm not mistaken. And everybody's got these posts out there about how great their organization is. I wonder how many of them sit back, look at those pictures, and are proud of what they've got.
Hmm. I think you probably have a better idea than most if I venture to guess.
Yeah, well, like, look, I don't think anybody wants to lift their skirt and show all the dirty, but the reality is pretty simple. When you have culture, focus, and it has to come from the founder's belief system and where we're going. If you don't have a detailed vision, who the hell wants to buy into what you've got to sell?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And actually, I wanted you to expand on that real quick because, I think that this is a topic of confusion for some people. I know it was for me in the past. Should a business's values come from the founder or the owner's belief system or a collective of the staff that they have?
Yeah, unfortunately, nothing really amazing comes from a collective. I'm a big believer that the Swiss Army knife is the worst knife you could grab if you needed it, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of these guys go, oh, well, I want to know what everybody thinks. And then you get this whitewashed vanilla approach. And nobody wants to be part of something that's whitewashed or vanilla, right? I'm not going to grab a Swiss Army knife out of the drawer and go, I'm going to go hack a tree limb off with that thing. No, I'm going to grab a big Bowie knife and take that thing. And that's the thing I want to hack it off. So with that, respectfully, I think, look, I think you can't build a business on someone else's values. They have to be yours. You're the founder. Your vision, your brand promise, everything should be predicated on where you want to go and how fast you want to do it. So if you come to me and you're like, I'm a $3 million business, I want to be 15 million in 5 years. Cool. Let's engineer that and let's take a look at it. Let's unpack it. What does it look like? How many trucks are we going to have? How many employees are we going to be serving? What geography will we do? What trades are we going to offer? How many trucks will we have in the parking lot? What is going to be our revenue? What's our expected profit? Is this the building we're going to be in? What is our marketing? Are we going to have billboards? We're going to have radio? Are we going to have our own podcast like everybody seems to be wanting to do today? What are the avenues we're going to do? And all those things I just talked about get painted into a brilliant vision that a guy like me coming to you, Josh, to your company and says, I read the painted vision. Well, I'll tell the painted vision story because I think it's impactful here. I told you, Rob said I got to meet with his partner to be interviewed. So I go to Gold Medal one day and I walk in the door and I meet this woman, Linda States. Now, I had never met her before that moment. And she goes, hi, Mike Disney. Welcome to Gold Medal Service. Grab a seat. I'm going to see if Mike's ready for you. Would you like coffee, tea, water, anything like that? I'm like, no, I'm fine. Thanks, Linda. And she goes, and man, I didn't realize how practiced this was until I saw it happen to other people. And so when they come in for an interview, that final interview, it's always that 4-minute, 5-minute sit. Why is it 4 or 5 minutes? The painted vision is right there at the table, and I get to read it before I ever go to my final interview. After I read that painted vision, it talked about doing $40 million and serving 125,000 clients and doing all the trade lines we were doing and having 200 employees and these 3 unbelievable these organizations we were providing charity to. I read that and I wanted the job before I ever was offered it. And to anchor that to my soul, when I met with Mike Aguilera and he interviewed me, the 40 million was in my mind from the painted vision. On his hand in Sharpie marker was written 40. And so at the end of the interview, I said, Mike, what's up with the 40 on your hand? He goes, didn't you read the painted vision? Don't you know where we're going? And that was it for me. I just wanted to be part of it. And it really didn't have much to do with the revenue. It had a lot to do with the intensity.
Yeah.
It had a lot to do with here's the picture. Here's Candyland. Do you want to ride along with us or do you want to just watch us do amazing shit? And I wanted to ride along.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you told that story because that is powerful. And I could see you're absolutely right. It wouldn't be about the 40. That number could be just about anything. Right. But the fact that you saw it you saw it painted, you saw it on his hand. I mean, just people reverse engineer stuff, right? I mean, listen, you saw that and you said to yourself, he had to be intentional about writing that on his hand today, that had to happen today, which means he had to think about that vision today enough to put it on his hand to make sure that he thought about it the rest of the day. Like, and this all probably happened in what, 0.2 seconds, right? That you connected these dots.
Ridiculous.
But that's the power. That's the testament. That's the takeaway.
Yeah. And the painted vision was always about talking about building a greater future for everybody who wants to be in connection with gold medal service and what it meant to the market. And man, I couldn't be more, like, I've had very few jobs in my life. I worked for Herman Sporting Goods. I own my own business. I worked at Gold Medal Service. I work at CEO Warrior. That's it. That's all I've had in my life. I will tell you, I am incredibly fortunate for that array of business the business experience. But there's an individual that had an intention around their day in each one of those stops that made me exactly who I am today.
Wow. That's powerful words, man. All right, listen.
And I think, like, if you want to be an exceptional person, there's a lot of ways to be an exceptional person. If you want to be an exceptional entrepreneur and an owner and a leader for people, it takes a little bit more intensity than the average have. And so I think that's what it comes down to. So if you're a business owner in today's world, man, today is so full of complexities. Everybody's got challenges. I mean, the world is just punching everybody left and right as much as it can. And so if you have this intensity around supporting people to the next level and giving them the journey for the next iteration of who you are and what you'll become in your business, all people need is opportunity, man. All they need is opportunity and somebody to give them the guiding light of how to secure it for their families.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, listen, we're rounding the corner on an hour already, and which is amazing because I could ask you a billion more questions.
Yeah.
But for the sake of our audience, and this is not the Joe Rogan podcast.
I know. I hear you.
I've got one more question for you, but before I ask that question,
Yep.
I want to give you this platform to fill in any gaps that we missed, anything that you feel is important for our audience to know, anything that you think that is they should be able to take away from this conversation that maybe we didn't hit head on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge that we face with coordinating our clients to a better future and a better tomorrow is a couple things. It's a couple fold, and I think if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, or you're a critical employee or critical manager and you're listening to this, or maybe you just work for a company and you're thinking about doing this on your own, or how can I be a better employee? I think you have to have some reality, right? Critical key performance indicators tell the story on everything. And so as a business owner, as a critical manager, you have to have a level of financial responsibility to your position and what you're delivering on a day-to-day basis. That is the singular most fearful thing most entrepreneurs are dealing with. I don't understand my finances, so I don't embrace them. And if you could embrace your finances and understand the responsibility of that, you can move your business in a greater position much faster and much more fluid than the people that aren't willing to do the discipline of learning the different, why do I have to have a cash flow statement? Why do I have to review my P&L? And then why do I have to look at daily KPIs? I mean, like, look, if I asked you what your booking percentage is in your call center today, you should have an answer because it's really important. And if you don't know what your field conversion is and your average tickets are and how many solutions per job were offered, then you're just not, you're not playing the part of an entrepreneur and a business owner that is relegated to the results. Every single person you hire, I don't care who they are paid for a result. Your job as the entrepreneur is to provide the opportunity to go get that result and then demand the return of that result.
It's absolutely right. It sounds so simple when you say it, Mike.
Yeah, well, and trust me, it is not simple. It's a very difficult process. And because most of us come from this world of, man, we're really exceptional with a pipe wrench in our hand. We're unbelievable with nitrogen and brazing and all that stuff. We're unbelievable at that. The problem is when you're an owner and a critical manager, you're not that guy anymore.
That's right.
You're not that guy anymore. And so you have to make a conscious effort to transform who you are, which means you need different skill sets and different disciplines, and you need to educate yourself. You need to go out and find a mentor who's going to guide you and put you in the right position. And quite frankly, that's the beauty and the fun of it all. I tell this story all the time here, or statement all the time here. It's not a story. It does not get any easier. It just gets more rewarding.
I like that. I like to tell people it doesn't get any easier. You just continue to get better.
That's it.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, that is above and beyond anything else. That's the struggle, right? That is when people say, I want to do this myself, and, they have to go through that gut wrenching and that heart wrenching change, the transformation, as you put it, from a mechanic to an entrepreneur or a business owner. Because I'll tell you, that's when people get lost. They throw their hands up, they give up because they just don't know. And it's excruciating sometimes, but you go through that, right, to come out better on the other end. So,
and like, look, when you don't have those things in place, guess what happens? You create massive amount of stress in your life. And when you have a massive amount of stress, guess what that does? It ends your life early. And you're only here for such a short time. Magnify what that looks like and have a great time doing what you're doing. But it comes with responsibility and sacrifice. And so you just got to know where to place those things.
Yeah. And I think this is, and I don't want to keep prolonging things, but this is a good platform also to your point, right? Social media really kind of glorifies a lot of this. And it has, I believe, taken some of the reality away from it. If we want to be successful, we have to be honest. And the truth is, everything that we're talking about here is hard as shit, and it takes a lot of work and focus and dedication. And if you don't want it bad enough, then get the hell out of the way. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's my message, not yours. I'm just,
No, I love it. I love it. And we talk about it in terms of, we say the exact same thing, Josh, and it's all about the 3 C's. It's a commitment. It's an exercise in consistency. And then there's the confidence that comes from you to your people. And so if you can have commitment, consistency, and confidence, you can rule your neck of the woods.
Oh, I love it. I love it, man. That's a good closer. I have one last question for you. I like to ask this to everybody that comes on the show. We talk a lot about success, right? And I talk a lot about the blue collar skilled trades and how depending on which avenue you choose and what opportunity you take in these industries can set you up for whatever definition of success is yours, because we have a habit of a society of putting people in these neat little boxes of what success looks like. So you, Mike, I'm going to ask you, what is your definition of success?
Wow. I think personally, my definition of success is having as much time with my children as possible. And so, listen, the trades have allowed me to have some things that other people don't have, right? I got a really sweet ass boat, and me and my son this Sunday, we're out off the coast of Point Pleasant, and we were fishing, and I can't trade that time for anything. That's my definition of success. We went out at 7 a.m. We were back at noon. And then I went for a walk with my oldest daughter for 4 miles in Princeton, New Jersey. And those moments are my success. Now, I promise you, everybody who owns a business today, you are in the art and the business of time selling. That's all you have, whether you're selling restaurant equipment or water heaters or air conditioning equipment, you are just simply selling time. Recognize how important time is to you. And I learned the hard way through a divorce that my kids just wanted another minute with dad. And now, as my son hits this 21, 22 years old, my daughter's 25, my youngest is 17, my oldest is 30. I really don't get to see Troy too often. But I have this love affair with their journey in life. And if I can steal a minute from them, that's my success. And so I got some making up to do for some things I didn't do great. But my wins are finding the freedom in my business to go do the things with my children that they love to do so I can witness them.
I love that, man. I got the Cats in the Cradle playing in my head right now.
Don't get me started with that. I'll start crying for you, Josh.
We'll end the show before you start turn on the waterworks. All right. So listen, Mike, where can people find you? Where can people find CEO Warrior?
Yeah, so CEOwarrior.com, you guys can click on there. There's all kinds of opportunities there. We offer free strategy session if anybody wanted to take this conversation to a deeper commitment. We have servicebusinesslive.com. You could click on that. There's an opportunity for an event. And like, look, you could hit me up on social media. My name's Michael Disney on Facebook. Certainly you could, whatever there is in CEO Warrior, just click on it. We have free Facebook pages and all that stuff. If we could help in any way, just reach out. We love to offer assistance and help. We have an amazing culture of amazing clients that are here, and we just love what we do, and we have a lot of fun doing it. And so, and last thing, if not least, Josh, for you to invite me over here to have the conversation. I always do this because I think it's really important to recognize and applaud you for getting information out there so people can have this conduit of success through this ease of, you get a bunch of people in here to talk about the things they love and teach things. I think that's the success that people need to dial into and kind of and recognize you guys for what you do. I think is amazing.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Mike. Thank you very much. And I couldn't do it without guests like you. So thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us today. I know you're a busy guy, but thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate it.
All right. Take care, bud.